All right, so just a brief scope of the project here. Building a data logger to monitor the temperature changes in pots. It's part of a group project over on the Epic Gardening Discord. We just had some curiosity and couldn't find studies easily. Granted, I didn't search too hard, but I, did think it through and think, hey, I could take temperatures every day, or I can, spend a day or so to build a logger and make my life a little easier. Also helps that the data is going to be formatted a little bit later. We'll talk about that in the next video, which is going over the code. So a little bit about these boards. It's an Arduino Mega 2560 and an Adafruit revision 3 data logger. It's kind of a beast of a board just to be doing temperature monitoring, but that's okay. We might add in a little different parameters a little later. Just depends on how scientific we're feeling. So right now I'm just soldering up the board. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the side. That's why it's taking me quite a while actually. Usually it goes a little quicker. And that can be oxidization on the board, or the solder, or my iron was too low. You also notice the pink thing in the corner. That's my PPE. That's a gas mask. Helps get those solder fumes so I don't inhale them, because they're not great to inhale. So recently moved, and just happened to see this out of the corner of one of my crates, and it's a magnifying glass. I was having a lot of trouble seeing it as well, and that wasn't helping with the solder job. So you see that white thing there? That was flux paste. That helps the solder flow a little bit better. It's made from pine tar. Kind of nasty stuff. It will hurt you if it gets on your skin, so please don't touch it like I just did there. As soon as I was done with this, I immediately went and washed my hands. See, it kind of looks really gross there. That's just kind of how it looks. They do sell that in liquid. I prefer the solid just because it lasts a little bit longer, and I had the liquid leak out in one of my toolboxes once. It wasn't fun. Kind of made a rusty spot. So as you can see here, the solder is flowing a little bit better. That liquid, what it does is it coats the metal and just makes it adhere better, essentially. So yeah, just going through. This side's going significantly easier than the other side. Took probably about half the time. Unfortunately, you have to take my word for it, just because I sped up the video, but they're different speeds just to reach the length of the video that I want to get here. All right, and as we transition here, you'll see me wiping my soldering iron. That's just because cleanliness helps when you're soldering. If your iron's dirty, it's not going to get a good bond. So you see the solder not sticking here. That tells me that I need to clean. That's what that little brass scrubby looking guy does, is it helps scrub off all that rosin paste and makes it so that the solder flows again. I'm using a Heiko FX888. It's a really good soldering iron. Honestly, like it a lot. It's one of the best ones I've used. It has enough temperature to do pretty much anything, including wood burning. If I feel so inclined. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but hey, it's nice to have the ability to do it. But it's also gentle enough that I can work on surface mount components and stuff. You see me flick off the solder there. I'm just talking about the solder a little bit here, and how when you store your soldering iron, you need to make sure it's covered, otherwise oxidization, thing we've been talking about. Here's a brief look at all the solder joints. The first ones are a little cold, and you see how these ones have a better fillet. That's what the flux does. So of course, when you're soldering, you always miss something. That's just how it goes. So I missed the SPI pins here. It's like a data communication pin. So must have done something wrong, because I was having a little issues with it later, but I think it was just a solder ball or something there that worked out. I had a short on a couple of the pins, and just playing around, it fixed itself. So hopefully it doesn't cause me any grief later. I'm just mentioning it now so I don't forget. Here we are going over the solder. I like using leaded solder just because it flows a little bit better. That silver solder, it's good, and if I'm around food stuff, I'll definitely use the silver solder, but the lead solder is just so much easier to work with. Just be smart. It is lead. Make sure you wash your hands, which, you'll see me do right here. I immediately wash my hands after. Make sure I get a good scrub, good soak, and a good rinse here. So the flex paste, you need to rinse off. It's acidic and will cause corrosion on the board. So you use the little isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush to scrub it off. Just takes a little bit of time working it back and forth, a couple rinsings. I pointed at the other board, which on the right there, that's the Arduino, and that one probably shouldn't get wet. It's got a little bit more surface mount components, which are a little more sensitive to this cleaning. You'd have to just let it sit a little longer. That's a wash down bottle if you're curious. Really useful for solvents because they don't evaporate out, and you can have quick access to it. So I got my sensors here, and I got long wires just so it's easier to reach the pots. It's something you can do with these. And at first I was connecting them together with these Wago connectors, really good connectors, reusable. You can put stranded and solid wire in there. If you don't have a breadboard, you can just get by with these. But because they're so bulky and I have so many sensors, I was just having trouble connecting them together. So I decided to solder all these wires together. Once again, a little more soldering. It's not too bad. You see my these Wagos, they come in different sizes, and it's just a little lever that you flip up and it like clamps it. You see my little helping hands there behind my hands. That's just to help hold the wires, because when you're soldering wires, they tend to move around a little bit, especially because you got to touch them with the iron, so that helps do it. So what I need to do now is I need to strip all these wires back, because it's really hard to solder just those little tiny points, and it's something I don't enjoy doing. So you see I got my wire strippers there. Those actually didn't end up working, and I just used a pair of side cutters. You might see them a little later. So you can see I'm using my helping hands to hold the wire and get my solder, just trying to get a little comfortable here before I get it. These usually take a little bit of more heat. I'm also going to solder on those jumper wires sitting on the desk below it, the red, black, and yellow ones. This is just going to make it a little easier to get in the Arduino. These take a lot of heat. That's kind of normal for wires, a little more heat than the circuit boards do, and that's why it's nice to have an adjustable soldering iron. It's not strictly needed. I soldered for years with just a basic $10 soldering iron, and it, occasionally if I'm working on cars and stuff, I still use that one. Just a little easier to get into tight places. So here we are back at my desk. You see the pile of Wagos I was using. I just finished up the wiring. It's fairly simple here, just power and ground. One data pin. We need a resistor in there. That's a pull-up resistor. Just it has to do with the sensors so that they send the data back, because it is digital. You have to excuse my camera work here and all the shakiness. I don't make videos professionally. This is just a little hobby project of mine I thought I'd document. So, just talking about the boards, you see a blue card in there. It's going to change a little bit later. That's actually a 32 megabyte card. I didn't realize that I had that. I thought it was a gigabyte card. I was just trying to, use what I had, but unfortunately that one's a little too small for what I need here. So you see I got my LAN cables here and all the temperature probes. I went ahead and labeled them. I already have the coding done at this point. But like I said, it'd be in the next video. Decided to use this clear bin just because I didn't want to spend 20 bucks on an enclosure and wire nuts and stuff. We'll see how this works out. If I end up noticing I get water in there or something, we'll definitely get the right thing and change it. So you can see here my test subjects. I've got a couple temperature sensor placements. One's underneath the mulch there, and then the other is going to be in the soil. And this is just to show the difference that mulch makes to a lot of the newer gardeners on the forum, because a lot of them I still see don't use mulch, and it's a huge advantage. So you see I stick this temperature probe down in there, and I'm not going crazy deep. This is just because most of the root zones are in the top like 6 inches or so. That would be, I'd say, about 2 inches deep, and I don't want to push it deeper until I know that these sensors are water resistant. They're supposedly rated that way, but everything comes from China these days, so sometimes things happen, and I just want to make sure that they're good before I bury them a little bit deeper. Just testing out my program, making sure it's working here. That's why it's only a few sensors. I got more sensors on the way. Hopefully this crate here stops my dogs from being a little too curious and knocking it over. I got a big pit bull, he tends to do that. And I'm just taking a walk around the garden here. It's looking a little raggedy, but it's been quite hot lately, 110 degrees here in Southern California. So we're still producing, and fortunately there's splits on a lot of it. But once it starts getting hot, there's really not a lot you could do to stop the splitting other than use a shade cloth, which I'm already using. I considered adding another one. You see these tomatoes on the fabric pots there, the tan ones. Those ones are doing great. I'm honestly going to switch to them just because they work so much better than plastic pots. They grow bigger tomatoes, and they seem to be healthier. Here's my strawberry tower. I planted this out a month ago. It's been in the shade. That's why they're a little bit small. Kind of the wrong time to do it in the summer, but hey, you live and you learn. I only lost one to a fungal issue on the bottom, which might have just had before I planted it, and sometimes that happens. Here's my little nursery cart. It tends to get the most shade. Got a lot of succulents on there because I'm trying to figure out where I want to put them. Some yellow tomatoes that have some pretty gnarly spotting there, you can see. I'm not really concerned about it. I think it's just a nutrient issue because they're in really tiny pots. But I need to get more soils, essentially what comes down. Here's my jade plant, not doing too hot because I sun scalded it. Blackberry, which was pretty much dead at the beginning of the year. I'm growing this for cane so I can propagate it. My plumeria and another plumeria type plant. I'm not sure if it's another plumeria or not. I don't know the name of that one. You see my loquat there peeking up, and then my glorious avocado tree. And I'm going to finish off the video with a video of some of my hummingbirds that come and show up. And thank you for watching and spending your time with me.